Hello, everyone, and welcome to the APAC Hybrid Cloud Kopi Hour. I am super excited to be bringing you our seventh show. It's very young still, but it's lucky number 7, and that's very exciting to me. What else can I say? It's always good to be here. As a quick reminder, we are talking Kopi, which is a wonderful coffee drink you get in Singapore, which I usually have a cup of today, but with our later start today, it's a bit too late for a coffee drink. So I've gone for some water, which you can't really see. Maybe if I get it, there we go, some water. So that is where we get the name from. I am August Simonelli. I'm a technical marketing manager at Red Hat, and I'm usually joined by Dev Shanbag as my co-host. He's been at every episode, but he won't be here today as he is celebrating the birth of a new baby. And so we, while Kopi Hour was super important, he's spending time with his family now. However, I do have some great guests with us here today to talk about something very exciting, automation. So let's go ahead and around the room. We'll basically go alphabetically and start off with who we have. The first person is Richard Hailstone, who's a principal special solution architect from Red Hat. Richard, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Well, just like that, hello in my best radio voice. Thanks, it's good to be here. Yep. So
Richard's here in Sydney with me.
Yeah, so I've been with Red Hat for just about over 6 years now, and I'm working across the whole ANZ region on automation. So
we got the right guy.
Yeah.
Now up from him is Mitesh Sharma, who is a senior architect based out of India, also with Red Hat. Mitesh, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Tell us a little about yourself, Mitesh. What do you do here at Red Hat?
So I work as a senior architect and looking after the automation part in RSDP.
That's right. So Mitesh works in our demo platform, creating these amazing demos that we'll get to see today as well. We also have with us Prakhar Srivastava.
Yeah. Prakhar Srivastava.
And Prakhar is also here with us in Sydney. And say hi.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Prakhar. I have the honor of leading the APAC content development team out of Red Hat. Our mission is to optimize sales and marketing strategies, ensuring that the world truly grasps all the groundbreaking capabilities which we have with Red Hat, all the products which we have in Red Hat. We try to showcase that in front of our customers using sales and marketing strategies and marketing initiatives like these, which August is hosting in here. Thanks, August, for giving us the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
No, I'm thrilled to have you guys here. So let's get right to it. So today we are going to talk about automation and specifically a couple of exciting new products or product enhancements that we have in the automation space. Before we jump into that, I want to go through a little bit of something as I like to do in the morning in the shows. I don't know how many people know what you're looking at here. So this is my journey to automation. Do you guys know what that is? Do you remember this? Now,
just zooming in. No.
Yeah, so this is
Big Brother, maybe.
This is Big Brother 4. So this was monitoring software that we implemented at a job that I was at in, I don't know, early 2000s, right? And so how do we get to automation? Well, Big Brother obviously monitored our systems and we had to get notifications to make Big Brother work. So I found this is literally from the original notes from like 2002. And this is what we had to deal with. This is what they put on their website. You had to do these crazy things to make it work. And so, if we could get notified, then we would take action. So then obviously that was crazy. So we moved up to Nagios, which is still popular today. And this is just, this is a monitoring software, so nothing to do with automation. But of course, we then wanted to automate system builds, tie it into Nagios, tie it into alerts. And for me, it was always Puppet that I used. Still out there, we played with CF Engine and stuff like that. But where am I going with this, right? Well, the world and for sysadmins has changed a lot. And so we've moved into this this world of EDA. What is EDA? Well, you're going to hear that today. The guys will teach you about that. But what was it for me? Well, EDA was Event Driven August. So when an event happened, I got a page on my BlackBerry, and I remember sitting there, maybe with my baby, like when the girls were little, and I'd get a notification, a server is down, something's wrong, whatever. And so that was how we did things, and nothing fixed anything for me. I got a page, or I had to get out of the supermarket line and deal with it and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we do anymore. And we're going to actually move ahead. And I've got a subtle reference to one of our product names. We're going to go Lightspeed into the future, which is now today, to talk about where we actually are with this whole process and how we can be a lot more proactive and productive in the way we do things. So I'll shut off my silly slides. So where are we? What does this mean? It's kind of exciting, and I'm super excited to see that we do have some comments coming in on the chat. We've got people very excited. Automation it's like Las Vegas, man. It's shiny and it's happening, and there's stuff going on. So I'm super chilled. I'm super excited for that too. So Richard, I think it would be good to hand over to you to kind of set the stage of all these things I'm babbling about, and have you tell us a little bit about automation at Red Hat.
Yeah, that's a really awesome acronym you've changed it to there, August, Event Driven August. And I think I'm going to make a suggestion that we change it immediately. And the logo, I know exactly what that's going to look like now too for Event Driven Automation. So I started way back in the days of CF Engine. Sorry, I'm just getting something in my lamp there. It looks like an insect. CF Engine, and then Puppet, and then of course that was around for a long time, and then back in about 2015 Ansible emerged, and it was pretty young, right? We had Ansible Engine for the CLI, and then we had Tower, which was the wrapper around that crept in, and those were from a product perspective, those were our two offerings.
Something's attacking you there.
The thing's starting to arc up, so apologies for that. Over time, customer, like the way Red Hat's, software development model works, obviously, is we do everything based on community upstream. And then we package that into the lovely milk container that we like to call products, and we lifecycle that, and it moves forward. And that's sort of where, we went with Ansible. We turned those two products that we had into one and renamed it a platform, as you know, right? And that's now really robust, and the capability within the Ansible automation platform lets you handle all those really deep DevOps sort of functions that you do when you're automating things. There's like a capability within the platform to sort of match each one of those touch points as you try and move the automation through your environment, right? So people still think, Ansible automation platform, that's just Ansible. But it's so much more than that. And I think what we're here today to talk about is, I guess, the two latest additions to that Red Hat Ansible automation platform family, called Event Driven Automation, or Ansible, and of course Lightspeed, because nothing's complete these days without AI or language learning models, right?
That's right. And we learned about that last week with Vincent, which was great. I think this is cool because Ansible is a language, right? It's code. It's like shell. It's like anything else you might use. And to see how, I work for Red Hat, but to see how we enhance that is really cool. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, definitely. It's getting, a lot of customers out there using it now, and a lot of customers trying to automate. Automation is a real imperative, I guess. That's a known commodity, like in that it's an imperative, but I think we still struggle to see people putting SLAs around automation, and it's still just a nice to have. I think that's kind of like the last mile we need to get through. But certainly writing code and getting assistance with that's going to, it's going to be a game changer. It's going to have a good knock-on effect for what we can do with Ansible moving forward.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, why don't you go ahead? I'll put up your slides and go ahead and take us through some of the thing. Prakhar and Mitesh, step in if you want. Don't feel shy or anything. Definitely jump in with your experiences there too.
Yeah.
Cool.
There
you go.
Cool. So I've put some slides together. I've got the agenda there, and it's not really agenda, right? So, but we've just mentioned we're going to go through event-driven Ansible, and so that's been added to the platform as a capability as of the 2.4 release of automation platform. So you can draw down and use this today, as you can with Lightspeed. So these two capabilities Lightspeed is, it's a free public service, though. It's being released as a tech preview in this sense. Anyone can use it if you've got an automation subscription or not. So it's very nice additions to the family, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to I'll go through a quick, a brief intro to those two capabilities, and then I think we're going to run a demonstration of this stuff too. So event-driven automation is essentially, I like to think of it, rather than this long-winded definition, it's essentially like, as in most event-driven architectures, we're talking about consumers and producers, right? So in the event-driven world, something's producing an event and another thing's reading it, instantaneously. And that's where event-driven automation steps in, right? To be the consumer in that scenario. So we're talking about consuming from things like logging platforms or alerting systems or message queues, devices directly or through aggregated platforms as well, like Splunk or even your ITSM tooling around ServiceNow. That anything can really be a producer in this sense. And, it's about connecting those dynamic events to actions in this sense, or automations, right? But let's expand on that concept of event producers a little further, because I think it kind of shows the value in what automation platform does. And it's in wide use across lots of organizations already. And so what event-driven Ansible does is allows you now to tap all your existing automation and the ecosystem that's within Ansible right into that sort of a consumer and producer ecosystem, to deliver more value and get more value out of your platform. Okay, and so it's all designed around making the job of making applications run more smoothly, more uptime, keeping the lights on, all that stuff. And across a hybrid cloud architecture like we have these days, we've got stuff in our own data centers, we've got stuff in cloud, and a mixture of apps spread across those. And automation platform lets you reach all those different environments. And now with the add-on of event-driven Ansible, lets you tap your automation into all those different sorts of event streams and things that come along with that hybrid architecture. Okay. How does that sound so far, August?
Yeah. So, I'm thinking about producers and just the scope of it, right? If I think about my big brother days, we weren't messing with network switches. We weren't messing with anything beyond a basic enterprise Linux. Well, it wasn't even RHEL then, but basic Red Hat servers, that kind of thing. Those other things were the domain of other teams. Yeah. They were areas you didn't touch. And I love how this kind of brings everything together, not only the technology, but the teams, right? Suddenly it's not, it's a switch, I don't touch it. It's like, look, we can all run this platform to automate these things.
Yeah, and those technology owners can still look. The good way that Ansible's structured means that those teams and those owners with the know-how can still be the owners of that domain, right? But the platform allows them to do that, but share it and integrate it with the other teams, which is really cool.
It's powerful.
Yeah, this is the future. Like, it's not just reacting; it's just thinking ahead. You are not just sitting down there and reacting for some event to happen. You're just thinking ahead and triggering your stuff, your actions. You're doing the actions.
Yeah. Again, and I think back to my 2004 self, and we were it was purely reactive. It was we could, and it was terrifying. I mean, honestly, as a sysadmin, it was terrifying. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I remember one time all the guys were at some festival and I was the only one. And it was like, oh, if it all goes wrong, I don't know what to do. If I could have told a system, well, if this goes wrong, do all this, I would have been a happier person.
Yeah, for sure. And you wouldn't have, with something like this, we're talking about reducing wait time. An event happens, something can be, triggered straight off the back of that. Wait time between handoffs between teams or getting notifications is what extends the outage windows and all those sorts of things. And also, as I noted in your slide, August, you had a BlackBerry in there. I haven't seen one of those for years, but it means that instead of you getting paged on your BlackBerry, you can now run an automation that might be able to pinpoint exactly where the alert came from, because there's an event payload that comes with all these things, and it enables us to take that payload and make intelligent decisions and enrich what we do with that information off the back of it, right? So you can start to log tickets or look up details of where the event came from and know where it is regionally, and then pinpoint exactly the right person who's local to it, and so on and so forth, to actually go do things about it. So that's all pretty neat.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right. So I'll move on. Okay, so let's have a look at. There was plenty of other slides I could have shown at this point, but I think I'll just show the audience a quick look at what we're talking about here. So if you're already using Ansible, you're familiar with playbooks, right? So everyone's got to write playbooks to get an automated outcome, and the playbook shows you the steps to get that automated outcome. And now what we're doing with event-driven Ansible is we're having rule books. Okay, it's a slightly different way of driving it. And rule books are pretty basic to understand. They still look and feel like Ansible playbooks. They're still written in YAML, but they have a source and then a condition and then an action. And the sources is all about, all this stuff I had in the previous slide, all these tools and tooling that, operations and developers and the like are using every day. We can match sources to those, match known types to those sources, I should say. Take the event payload, run it through this rules engine, which we could have multiple conditions we're checking for, and then run a playbook or an automation off the back of that, either directly or with raw modules being called here from Ansible, or we can also, trigger automations to run within automation platform, right, where we get all that centralized logging and credentials and all the extra benefits around that.
So the rules engine, where does that piece come in? Like, who is that coming with the product?
Yep. So that, there's core functionality in this. So you literally have off-the-shelf source types that we can use. We have off-the-shelf condition. Is engine the right word? I don't know if it's an engine, but yeah, a conditional framework that we can use to make, to pull apart the alert that we've got or the event that we've received, to pull that apart using this condition rulebook or engine, and just trigger automations off the back of that. Yeah, that's all baked into this this new capability. Yeah.
Right, and it's a rule book, so it's another file that's called as from a playbook, I assume.
Well, what you're looking at on the screen here is a rule book, right?
Yeah.
So they start off pretty well defined with the source at the top here, and what we're doing is on the event-driven controller itself, we're listening on port 8000. And so, we're going to configure things in our environment to send in the alerts our way into that listener. And then we're going to be able to trigger through that next piece in the rulebook there, the rules. We're going to be able to go and have a look at what happened and then fire actions off the back of that. So the actions are the automations. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, the concept is very similar to how we used to write the playbooks, but it is now rule books, which has all the three of these options, sources, rules, but it's a separate file. Like we can't trigger it from playbook, but it's something which is running somewhere.
And looking at it, I would think that's a playbook. So
yeah, looking at it, it's a very similar concept.
Yeah.
But it is you can run it within a decision environment, which Richard will talk about a bit in there in the EDA controllers.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Indeed. So yeah, look, I don't think I will dig much further into like it at a slide level, right? We can just talk around this a bit more if you want, but I think some of the cool use cases, and I think I mentioned this the other day to you, August. We were talking through this, and I was saying like how some of the conversations with customers have been around stuff happening in the data center. Someone plugs a cable into a switch or something like that, and we can get the link up action or event to be logged centrally, right? An event-driven automation you can pick up on this. And so if that event comes in with a data payload saying this switch in Raleigh, for example, or Denver, wherever it may be, just had a link up on it on port 24, we can get the MAC address from that, and then we can do a search, so to speak, for where that's what subnet that might live in, for example, from our IPAM, something along those lines. So this is where the power of Ansible kicks in off the back of an event. We can start to look up different sources and use the information to match and then allocate IP addresses and things like that, for example, to the device that perhaps was plugged in. generate a DHCP config for that and send it out to that location to sort of start that process up, and then potentially bootstrap the thing that was off the back of that. So this is really cool for those, not only those data center type scenarios where people are plugging things in, whether they're meant to be or not, right? We can also do the reverse. If someone plugs something in, we can log into that switch and shut the port down, right? But this is where we can start to use automation in ways we haven't been able to use it before, in a little bit more of a proactive way to stop people having to get involved in some of these menial tasks.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, you think about remote data centers or inaccessible data centers, or even just the time to get to them. That's pretty powerful. But what really intrigued me there, you said, you can actually block an action. So Ansible can look after something and say, look, this port's come up. It's not meant to. So take no action, or
casually just ignore that, or by default everything's meant to be switched off in my network, so nothing should really be getting a link up all of a sudden. So because we know what port it was, what switch it was, we can then actually go and connect into that with the automation and shut down that port, so to speak.
So that's cool. I mean, from a physical hack or security point of view, that's powerful. Avoiding a mistake, and we've all done it. I remember when wasn't me pulled the cable out of the Exchange server, and I know you can't stop that with automation. But the point is, we get people into the data center, and maybe certain areas don't have to be touched in the first place.
Yeah.
So you don't have someone down there pulling cables and grabbing the wrong one. I mean, that's time saved and hassle saved.
Absolutely. And even in the sense, not having someone to have to go there to do that task for plugging a cable in, or to do the extra tasks after that, I guess, means that we can now sort of deliver equipment remotely in this example. And someone that's not even necessarily IT savvy can potentially just plug cables in off the back of that. So there's all sorts of ways to apply that thinking and take advantage of it. Yeah.
And I assume for even when you look at things like stores, I guess Edge, under a counter at a gas station, something like that, where if things are hooked up the right way, you can actually start to. I mean, there's not going to be someone at a service station who's able to do that. They just need to get things going. So out it comes, plug it in, up it goes.
We call all these things use cases, right? What's the use case for using it? Another example could be because we can hook into monitoring solutions and tooling, like I guess App Dynamics or Dynatrace or some of those other partners and things, where we can look at the performance of a server, right? And if it's underperforming, so to speak, and it might be part of a group, we can start to look at things like why is it underperforming, or perhaps it's on a noisy server. This instance that's slow is on a noisy server, and we could quickly rebuild a node that's on a not so noisy server, or redeploy in a different availability zone to add that back into the cluster and take the slower one out. We can start to do things like that. And with this conditional engine, right, we can say that if the event comes in and it says the IO wait time was greater than 15 milliseconds, right, and that's slow, like, let's do this process and let's be proactive about it.
And that's neat, because the time is spent for the engineers not in fixing broken things and running around, trying to resolve things, but actually planning out, like you were mentioning, planning out scenarios and saying, if we architect things in certain ways, we understand that the conditions we might hit, and actually planning for that. And I think that'd be so much more interesting as an engineer, as a developer as well, to get to interact with my infrastructure that way, rather than it constantly being this reactive sort of. Panic's probably a bit much, but
ED makes sure that our network admins and our sysadmins have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, and and the point of, and I think that's actually, we laugh at that, but the reality is even when you're on call, you're always kind of there. I mean, and I remember back in those days, I would turn my phone off when I wasn't on call. I mean, like, phones have off switches, so because it was really stressful. It really was hard, and it also meant that that I didn't get the good night's sleep or whatever. And so I wasn't actually, and this is my bias, system administration. I'm sure there's developer use cases too.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't sharp the next day. So, the human effect of this is big, and it's kind of exciting to me. I wish I had a time machine. I'd hop in the TARDIS and bring this back to myself.
Yeah, that's it. But I'll just come back to the original point too, is that it's good for the people using it, for the people that are getting involved and writing it and everything. A little bit more challenging to put a value on it above that, around, how is it improving my business, or how is it doing X or whatever, right? To make some of this more relevant up the chains, to people that allow us to do these things. And I think, part of the value around this is particularly around that mean time to recovery, or responding to stuff that lets apps stay up longer and businesses less impacted, right? So doing more with less too is another thing. Hard to put metrics around that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it also introduces something we saw more of in the pandemic years is, yes, doing more with less, but also looking after our people and understanding that, when we give them tooling to not have to live in those kind of intense, stressed out states, they're better and they make our businesses better. And that, it's very hard to quantify that. You can't say, but I love that.
Quantify, but certainly people will listen to that, right? Because that is important. That is key to having a good business, right? Yeah. Absolutely. But it's also a good intro to the next point there, August, right? Around sharing is caring, and bringing other people, making it easier to write automation. Or even improving on the automation. And of course, once you get started on this stuff, it can be a bit like a drug. You want to just go on to the next bit and the next challenge and see how far you can push this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this is where maybe Ansible Light Speed with IBM Watson Code Assistant comes into play. I have to say that. So this is pretty cool. This is a new feature where, generative AI and language learning models specifically trained with Ansible content, right? Specifically trained. So this isn't a language model that's been trained to interpret natural language and spit out some code. This is a language model that's been trained with Ansible content to specifically identify a request and match an example to it. And this is how, we're going to take these people with the know-how in an organization, or our peers that haven't written automation before, but they have the know-how about how things hang together and how the IT environment operates, right? There's a reason why you used to get called at that time in the morning, August, because, you were the only guy that knew how to bring things back up, or what that particular failure meant, whether you could respond to it or whether you could ignore it, right? So that's the know-how. That's the stuff that we can't replace. Right.
But I filled out the wiki. I had comprehensive documentation, and that's what you want to do at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Read.
With all those meta tags,
Oh, it was terrific. Yeah. The first part was just getting on the VPN to fix something. It was like, these was 20 years ago, so it was all over the place. So yes, to have that collective knowledge in a specifically trained model is super cool.
Very cool. Very cool. And that's where that know-how, we can start to put it in a model. And so if we capture that, we can start to get this model to suggest collections and Ansible code based on that know-how and examples that we've fed into it from our own organization, our own teams. And then we can reiterate that process each time as the next people come and use it, right? We can build upon it, and it can be further enhanced and customized to give suggestions and things that are relevant for what we're doing, right? And I think that's where the AI really needs to go. So introducing that capability, and Red Hat and IBM have joined forces there to accelerate your adoption of Ansible automation platform, and get more value, I guess, and more return on investment. But not just to that, but also sharing that know-how and lowering the barrier to entry for people wanting to automate something. Like most of us, the way we learn is software development these days, if you want to do software development, where do you go? You go into Google and you search on what you're trying to do, and you go to GitHub or Stack Exchange or whatever it might be, and you get the code snippets and you copy them and you refine them and you tune them and you get your software working. And that's where this sort of comes in. That's how you start to learn how to write code. And that's the same with Ansible in this sense. This is how you can quickly learn through examples and doing trial and error. And this is how this is going to really help you get more out of your automation platform.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I was talking to a nephew of mine, and he's in computer science, and talking about AI and code generation. But isn't it a cheat? Is it a cheat? And he's like, no, this is the way things are done. It's a way to learn. It's a way to build, to educate, to use that collective, stuff to get better and to feed back in and all that. And I think that's super important to understand that it's not a cut and paste and, I did my job. It's helping you build your own skill set and add back into that skill set and into that collective group. So it's a really neat thing. Because at first when I was seeing these demos, and I'm excited to see a demo soon, it was sort of like, oh, wow, this means, my 5-year-old, I don't have a 5-year-old, but, my 5-year-old could write code. And it's like, no, that's not the point. There's still the human there knowing what they need. It's getting the code syntactically correct. It's looking at different ideas of how it can be better. And I think that's just so cool. And you've said that, but it's just, it was very neat to hear a 20-year-old kind of really get this.
Confirm it. Yeah.
It's just a tool which helps, but it can't replace the human touch. And you need to, and only the person who is writing it understands his environment. Any language processor will not be able to understand what's going on in your data center. You need to know about your data center, what's happening, which cloud you're using. So it's a tool to use, but it's not like a cheating, but a tool. It will speed up the process.
That's right. And it doesn't replace anybody. It just enhances what we can do so that we can get stuff out more quickly, safer, that kind of stuff. I love it. I do.
Yeah, for me, it's like it creates a scaffolder for me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I just sit on, and then whatever I need, I just put my variables, put my stuff in there and make it better.
Yeah.
And, like AI is kind of offers, because information is so distributed at the moment, and like what's the biggest growing thing in IT, right? It was storage. I think it probably still is in terms of what part of computing is growing the most. And it's storage of data. And maybe that's what AI offers in this sense too, is a more centralized storage of data where people can go to learn, to get hands-on details around things without having to go to GitHub or Bitbucket or wherever they go and search from all these multiple, potentially replicated places where data is stored. AI helps you bring all that together in one location and potentially have less storage off the back of that as an outcome, right? So that's really neat too. And for that reason, we get better results when we're looking for stuff, right? Because, if I wanted to do something like what Prak's working on or Mitesh is working on, and I'm just getting started on this stuff, I would be happy if they wanted to give me some one-on-one time to coach me and teach me stuff. But, I may not be that type of person. I may prefer to kind of engage with them when I'm a little bit more skilled up, right? And I've got a little bit more, something to give if they're going to work with me. And so I think AI is going to give me the ability to go in there and play with it, see what they've done, use the suggestions, get the feel for how this stuff, is cobbled together before I go asking all those dumb questions, right? And in that way, I can sort of jump in where they're at a bit more readily and a bit sooner. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it really heightens the conversation that you can have, and then you start to just feed off each other.
And at this point, it's free, right? So hey, it's why not?
Yeah.
Use it.
All right. So look, I think we've been around the traps with some of these other points, right? But I think just at the end there, just if anyone's interested, this is, I mentioned it's free, so just hit that URL at the bottom there. It's self-supported, and so no one to ring at this point at 3 a.m. in the morning. But one primary thing that it does is it's targeted at developing code and specifically Ansible tasks. So a natural language definition of the task is all you need. Hit the enter key and Lightspeed will make a suggestion. But moving forward, I think the goal would be for Lightspeed to understand the project that you're working on a little bit more broader speaking. What's the automated outcome I'm trying to get rather than the granular task by task? And then I think where it can go to from there is maybe understand it at an even broader level, what the enterprise is trying to do as a whole. For example, we might be trying to move to cloud. So if you say, for example, I want to provision a user or I want to give someone access to this, the automation can start to understand the difference between whether that's a user add command on a Linux machine or whether it's an IAM add or an Active Directory add in the cloud and so on and so forth. So this is really cool, right? Really good addition. And that's pretty much where we're planning to take it.
Yeah. Which is the reason to jump on now. I've put the link in the chat just to get in there and play.
We've got
and we can put these slides up too, because I know obviously don't touch your screen, you can't click it, but we'll put these up. Although you've done the short links, so that's great.
You'll send it around. I'll put these up. All right, terrific.
Yeah.
Okie doke. All right, so that's all I had for those slides and things. If you
That's good, right? So it gets us thinking, it gets us understanding what we're talking about here. But the best part is when we can see it. So I can see Mitesh, she's starting up the engine. It's happening. So I think it would be great now to go ahead and as the sun comes down in Sydney, to go ahead and get a demo of some of this. So Prakhar, why don't you kind of give us set the scene for us a bit here and take us through what we've got?
Okay, so I'll put some fuel in Mitesh's engine before we start.
There you go.
Okay, so as I'll start with the August opening comment, which was Ansible is a language of sysadmins. So that's what we are trying to do in here. Big thanks to Richard for setting up the stage as we dive deeper into the Mitesh demo. Keep in mind, we are exploring two dynamic chapters in Ansible's world. Firstly, we'll deep dive into Event Driven Ansible. Now, Event Driven Ansible is not just limited to one source, as Richard was explaining just now. It can be triggered by multiple sources. It can be synced with the platforms like Alert Manager or Kafka and so on. Now, in today's demo, which Mitesh will be showcasing, we are zoning in OpenShift events. Now, so when a new namespace rolls out in OpenShift, Ansible doesn't skip it. It swiftly sets a resource quota, ensuring our developers play nice. They don't hog all the resources on OpenShift, which is a very common issue, not putting the resources, not putting the limits requests, and easily, without any bad intentions, they hog out the OpenShift resources. Another very common thing which we see is developers generating or creating a route and forget to patch it with TLS. So we are running, we are looking at the OpenShift event. As soon as a route gets created, it should patch the route with TLS by talking to the cert manager. So there's a playbook which will trigger using that event and will patch the routes. Another common thing which we see, as soon as we create a persistent volume claim, a snapshot needs to be taken. So that is one of the other things which Mitesh will be showcasing. Now, what Ansible driven and event driven Ansible is all about, it's not just about reacting as we discussed, but orchestrating with foresight. So we want to orchestrate before event occurs. We don't have to wait or to react before that, before something happens in our environments. So this is what the crunch about event driven Ansible. Now let's switch the gears and talk about a bit of a light speed, which again Mitesh will be showcasing. Now consider Ansible Light Speed as Ansible's linguistic sidekick. He's a Robin for our Batman. So seamlessly bridging human dialogue with automation. As Ansible Light Speed is using natural language processing through IBM Code Assistant, it effortlessly turns the casual conversations into ready-to-roll playbooks. So we don't have to worry about writing correct statements. Whatever we, as two sysadmins are talking, let's talk to the Lightspeed. Let's tell it, give me the recommendation to create a EC2 instance. Give me a playbook which can automate my stuff on my Cisco router. So we'll just talk to a friend. So Ansible Lightspeed is the sidekick for you, Ansible expert. Now, one of the things which we are always in need of is Ansible experts, but sometimes we fall short of these savvy minds who can jot down intricate playbooks. So Ansible Lightspeed also fills out that space. So if a company doesn't have good Ansible developers, or they are not able to find smart people to write their Ansible playbooks, we have it for you. So Ansible Lightspeed can, as I was talking about, it will create a scaffolder for you, it will create a skeleton playbooks for you, and then you just configure it whatever you want, however you want to set in, depending on your environment. Now, Mitesh will give us the grand tour, demonstrating how tasks, even as complex as setting up a cockpit on RHEL 9 node. So, cockpit is, if you guys are familiar, in the old times we used to have webmin to manage the Linux boxes. So, cockpit is the tool, which is a browser-based system admin tool, which can help you to manage the RHEL nodes. So, Mitesh will show how, and he will write an Ansible playbook which will configure cockpit on RHEL 9 nodes. So that's something which he will be shown. You will be witnessing that into the action. Now, two of these demos, each showcasing Ansible's powers and versatility. Fasten your seatbelt for a blend of innovation, precision, and sheer pace. Mitesh, it's your show time.
Wow, there's a setup. Well, here we go.
Thanks,
Now the
I'll
drum.
bring your screen up. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
thanks, Agus, for sharing this screen now. Guys, so I'll continue what Richard and Prakhar has already explained in form of demo. So in the demo, I'll be talking about three event-driven Ansible examples: DevOps automation, infrastructure monitoring, and security orchestration. In the DevOps automation example, we will see how event-driven Ansible helps to automate resource quota deployment as soon as new namespace gets created in OpenShift cluster. In infrastructure monitoring example, we will see how effectively event-driven Ansible can take an action like creating volume snapshot as soon as new persistent volume gets created. And in the security orchestration example, we will see how quickly event-driven Ansible patches the non-SSL routes with the SSL certificate to implement the secure communication. So let's understand rule books, which we have already discussed. Um, Let me expand. Okay. So in the event-driven Ansible, we create rule books which tells the system which events to flag and how to respond to the event. We write rule books in YAML, and it looks traditionally like Ansible playbooks, which makes it easier to understand to build the rule books for our needs. Um, a rule book is comprised with the three main components: sources, rules, and the action. So sources defines which event source we will use. These sources are available as plugins. In our example, we are using EDAKS, which is meant to read OpenShift cluster events. By adding a kind parameter, we are making the source more specific and limited to namespaces. There are some other plugins which are already included, like webhooks, Kafka, alert manager, etc., that can be used in place of EDA according to our requirement. Rules defines conditionals, which it will try to match from the event source to trigger an action. In our case, we used add added, which means the condition will be true whenever new namespace is added to the OpenShift cluster, and then obviously it will trigger the action. Now look at the action. Action triggers what we need to perform if condition is met. In our example, action triggers the job template, which will be setting up the resource quota on newly created namespace. Um, Rule books also have some other actions in place of run job templates we can use, like run playbook, run module, set facts, event, debug, etc. Let's see how do we configure these rule books in event driven controller. In- So guys, this is a, web interface for event driven Ansible controller. So we create a decision environment. Decision environment is a container image which includes all of the necessary dependencies which are required by the plugins, and then we create a project. That project can be from any source, like GitHub or maybe Git, anything. So there where we keep all of the rule books, and rule books we have already seen, and then we go and create a rule book activation. So this rule book activation will have the inclusion of decision environment and the rule book, and then it gets executed. If automation, EDA controller is configured on a OpenShift cluster, then it will be running on OpenShift, or maybe if it is running on individual rail machine, so it will be creating parts on rail machines. Right. So going back to the VS Code editor here. So here you can see, like, if we get a new namespace created, it triggers a job template, which is a set resource quota on namespace. If you look at the playbook, which is actually points to this template. So here is the playbook. So it's a simple playbook which we write all the time for doing the automation. So here we have a couple of variables defined. One of the variable, which is on line number 6, called ns, have the value set is ansible underscore eda dot event dot resource dot beta dot name. So this masses, this variable is coming from a rule book. So rule book has the thing, like whatever the event it gets from the sources. So it has the capability to pass on variables to the job template, or maybe the playbook if we are running the playbook directly.
Right, and
So
it's
further,
variabilized just like anything, right? It's just normal, right? I don't have to learn something new here because there it is, right? It's just a variable that came from a different source.
yeah, exactly. So further, there is a task. We are using core KS module, which is setting up the resource quota
Hmm.
on the namespace, which rulebook is saying to set on. Right. So we have three examples. So for all three examples, we have three different playbooks, like here.
Mhm.
We have already configured these three playbooks on automation controller in a template, which you can see here. Set resource quota on namespace, patch routes with cert, and a create volume snapshot. Right. So these playbooks are already configured as a job template. Now the point is, like, how are we, and when this event will get triggered? As we know, like, as per the rule book, whenever new namespace gets created in an OpenShift cluster, it is going to match the condition and then going to trigger the action. So let's create the namespace. So I have already created an object file, which you can see.
Yeah.
So it's an YAML format, and it's creating simply a Rocket Chat namespace in the OpenShift cluster. So to create that one, I'll simply run OC create command, NSF, and what. So what it is gonna do, it is going to create a namespace. The moment namespace will be created, automatically, our source will pick the event, and that will trigger a job, which you can see here. So a job got triggered from Ansible automation controller. If you look at the here
Yeah.
in a ED controller, so you will see the set resource quota on namespace recently got hit, and the number of rules got triggered just one. This shows that how many times it has picked the event and the condition got matched. So if we will try to verify using OC command resource OC get resource quota on Rocket Chat, so we can see that the source quota has got applied. Similarly, if we do another example of creating a persistent volume claim, so if I go quickly to here to the automation controller, you can see a job is running, which is meant to create a volume snapshot. So if we'll go to the OpenShift or maybe the command line, we'll see that there will there will be a snapshot for persistent volume which got recently created or added in the system.
Mi- Mitesh, can we audit these tasks from media controller itself? Is there a way to do that? Can we see it in there?
Of course, yeah, because this is really nice one. Yeah, I forgot to show. Like, if you really wanted to see that what are the logs, what are the events got triggered and got captured, we can directly click on one of the rule books activation. So it shows if you go to the history, it shows that this is the thing which got triggered and have all the logs here available.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
And I think we can have a look at the rule audit as well, Mitesh. As
Yeah.
you know, right?
yeah,
And that-
so since it's a dot release, it doesn't show for the first time whenever there is a new thing got clicked. So if it is it, I
next
mean,
one. Next
Next
one.
one. Next one.
so,
The next
so
one. Yeah, gotcha.
So audit, I mean, it starts from the next one only. So here we can see create snapshot, but we don't have anything related to set resource quota here. So
You're
here,
living, you're living the life on the edge using the dot zero version.
that's true.
This is where we wanted to see that. If you look on
Yeah.
the event, right, you can see exactly like what was in the payload that triggered this. So
Yeah.
quite nice.
So yeah, here it shows that which the source got triggered
Right.
and what action got taken. So
Yep.
this was the action and this was. By the way, we can have multiple source. Sorry, by the way we may have multiple sources, multiple rules and action in the same rule book. So it helps us to identify.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was it. If I run a third example just to show.
That's the most important one. We want our routes to secure.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And you think about the times you like, I mean, I was building up, I think, front door in front of a bunch of OpenShift things. And I always, I had forgotten it or whatever. And it was just a hassle because I was being repetitive and just for a demo. But the point is, I forgot. And it needed to be there. It was sloppy what I did and nothing worked. And I was confused for 10 minutes. So this is great.
Yeah.
So for security orchestration, this is really awesome. At the moment, if I show this one, so it creates a simple route without SSL. So that is what I'm gonna create. So the moment it will be created, EDU will get it from the source, will take the action, which is passed route with the cert. A certificate will be passed. So if we go back to the OpenShift routes, and obviously, so it is now HTTPS.
Nice.
So that's about EDA demo. So let's talk about and explore Ansible Light Speed as well.
Right on.
So we have been talking about Ansible Light Speed. Prakhar has talked and Richard. So I'm gonna show how does it work. As of
Everything ends with AI nowadays.
That's right. This
That's
is when the
true.
robot comes in,
Everything,
right?
yeah.
And
Virtual August, we're calling it.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
like it's just everywhere. Yeah. So guys, we know like Ansible Light Speed with IBM Watson Code Assistant is available via the Ansible Visual Studio Code extension. And if I show, I have my Visual Studio Code open and extension is installed. By the way, installation of extension is not enough. So upon the installation of extension, we will get this icon. So you just need to click the icon and connect. So when you click on a connect, uh, open a browser, and there you need to go through the authentication. So you, as a prerequisite, you should have a GitHub account with you. So I have already gone through the process. So I mean, here you can see you can
Yeah.
choose login with GitHub. So I have already my environment ready. So once you will get through that process, you will have this icon as a logged in.
Right.
So yeah, and what you see here, you see like a playbook with a couple of lines, commented lines. Like just for a demo, I commented the lines. Um, Uh, so here, what I have to do is I uncomment these task description and ask Ansible Light Speed for an AI suggestion. That's it. It's very simple as pressing enter and tap to accept. So let me show you here.
And this is
Um,
so neat because I've seen these demoed, and just the fact that you're just writing what you want and just do it. It's just too cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just a normal chit chat with my friends beside me.
I know this is what it's like. It's like, oh, dude, could we include the
Yeah.
Red Hat? Oh, sure, bang.
So one more thing we need to pay attention here, like after enabling, if you are writing a playbook, you need to make sure that it shows at the bottom. It should show Ansible Light Speed here. If it doesn't show, then you will not have Watson recommendation available. So here I just uncommented this line, and if you are doing it as a beginner, so or maybe as a fresh playbook, so you will need to write name and the description of what you wanted. So hit enter. Here you will have the suggestion. So if you like this suggestion, hit tab to accept, and you will have the thing recommendation pasted on in the file. So I'll just uncomment another one,
Hmm.
or maybe I'll
Yeah, go
uncomment
through
all. Yeah. So let me hit enter here. Take another suggestion, recommendation. Here it is. So as per recommendation, it knows that these are the location which may have the file. Like if you read, if we have a file here for a cockpit. So recommendation engine or Lightspeed reads the content from the file to provide the suggestion and recommendation.
This becomes a great learning tool as well because rather than get lost in syntax and stuff like that, you can really get the basic stuff down, and then you start going, oh, I could do so much more with Ansible. And there'll be rules that don't write out properly right, I'm sure. I think you can submit a fix, or of course you can edit. You don't have to accept it. It's your code. But it really teaches you a best practice, and then
Exactly.
to be a good coder yourself.
Yeah.
The best part, it teaches you how to indent your YAML files.
Exactly. That's a thing we face.
Tab, tab, tab. No, wait.
Everyone has their own style of writing the playbook, so
Yeah.
at least it will uh, make it better. So in the last example, I just asked allow cockpit through firewall. So I'll simply hit enter, and I'll have the recommendation.
Huh.
But we know, like we may use some of the things like predefined or default parameters we can directly enable in the playbook. So I'll just enable this part, which has defaulting parameters for firewall D module, right? So if I go back and delete this suggestion, so here you can see we have a permanent true at the moment. Now, just to make sure recommendation reads the content to before it gives the recommendation. If I hit enter again, you can see the recommendation is a bit different. So it doesn't include the permanent equal true option because as per the context, it sees that it is already enabled as a default. So it will do
That's
that.
cool. I didn't know it did that. So yeah, right. So it's not duplicating. It's smart enough to to know the defaults that have been set already. Oh wow.
Yeah, and even if you have a dictionary of variables, if you have it on the top, it will actually pick up the variable names and put it into the task,
Some of them in.
which is
Geez.
very. You just have a variable dictionary included in
terrific.
there, and it reads it for you.
It is really cool. It saves a lot of time. Like sometimes when I do write a task, obviously I need to visit the documentation, so it is saving a lot of time. I don't need to do.
As,
Yeah,
as
I'll have the solution. If I need to tweak it, I'll just take and use my parameters or maybe something else. Yeah, and then I'll have the task in just few seconds.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all about this demo.
That-
What do you prefer?
Cool, thanks. As we wrap up Mitesh's demo, it's clear that event-driven Ansible reacts swiftly, while Lightspeed turns talks into tasks. These aren't just tools; they are the future of tech interactions. So please, guys, use it, play with it, and let us know. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good. And seeing the demo like that, seeing where we're at with that, like you were saying earlier, Richard, we're at a turning point moment where
Yeah.
get in now, right? I mean, things are developing, they're happening, and it's an opportunity, especially with a company like Red Hat, but just with the open source community, to actually be a part of it now. And again, the sysadmin of me 20 years ago, 5 years ago when I was young, was very would have loved this, right? It would have loved the opportunity. So to those who are new to the profession and such, this is a great place to be at the forefront of it and to shape the future of what they do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, terrific. This is terrific. This has been fascinating. A great demo, wonderful conversation and explanation of how things are, how this is all coming together. It's been nice for me kind of going down memory lane, thinking about that world as it was before, as I was thinking about the show and just how advanced this has become. I don't have much more. What I do like to do is, if you have any final words, Richard, I don't know if you wanted to sum up everything, but we've covered it nicely, but please do.
I think we really have covered it nicely. Just have a play. Get started, like you said, get involved, have a play, help improve. That public service right now. And please, August, don't forget to share that labs link, because there's a lot of hands-on, publicly available stuff that we'd hate to write for no reason at all, right? We
Absolutely.
want people to use it.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll update the description. We'll place a link to the deck as well. I can grab a deck from you and place that, and I'll do that all this evening. And then people can review the session. They can watch us in fast speed, so we talk really fast, and that can always be fun. But yeah, look, Mitesh, thank you so much for the demo. Prakhar, thanks for bringing it all together. I hope to do many more of these with you. Prakhar, I don't know, you and Mitesh, if you have anything else to add, please do.
Thanks.
Give it try.
Yeah, give it a try, play with it, give us feedback, and that's how open source community works. So let's make a community around it.
Absolutely. Join us for sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the Kopi Hour yet again. I do want to point out that Red Hat Summit Connect is going on right now. We just had our event in Sydney, and Richard was presenting there, so that was wonderful to see. But head to this URL and check it out. And then, of course, for future streaming, we got all kinds of cool shows happening on the Red Hat calendar and the live streaming. So definitely check those things out. With that, I want to wrap it up. Thank you, folks, for coming along and presenting and talking and having the conversation. And I'll see you next time for some more Kopi. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.